China Geography Video Part 2 is a precursor to when we get into Chinese history. Obviously, the area we're going to be talking about is Shaanxi and Xi'an, and that area, that's the early Yellow River Valley and Hui River Valley civilization of the earliest dynasties 4,000 years ago. And of course, China's expanded a lot since then. And when we get to the Han Dynasty, they actually went pretty far out west and hooked in with the Silk Roads to connect them with the rest of the world. But this is modern China for the sake of it. Shanghai to Kashgar, that is about 3,200 miles. Let's compare it to the United States. New York to San Francisco, 2,900 miles. So it's actually a longer walk to go from Shanghai to Kashgar than it is to go from New York to San Francisco. Notice something else that's cool. This is just something I like. Your destination's in a different time zone. That's right, it's 3 hours later in New York than it is in San Francisco. But can anybody guess what the time difference is if you're going from Shanghai to Kashgar? There is none. It's the same time in both places. Yep, China is in the exact same time zone, despite being as wide as the United States. But check this out. This is where it gets wild. Sunrise, sunset times. That's in Shanghai. Sun's rising about 6:38, setting at 5:39. Hold that thought. What about Kashgar? Sun's not rising until 9:51, but hey, it's not setting till 8:30. They actually have a local time that's 2 hours behind that, identical to Kazakhstan's time. Where I lived in China was in the middle of this. That's my U.S. map. So here's your all of China map. I was way south, and I was more in the central part. I always liked that because, if you know anything about me and time zones, I've been a big advocate for the United States adopting permanent daylight savings time. That's the time we'll switch to next month, where all the time zones spring 1 hour forward to give you an extra hour in the evening. China is standard time, and that's standard time in Shanghai, right in the middle of the time zone, but because it's Beijing Standard Time nationwide, and the country's as big as the United States, you have places like Kashgar that are like double or triple daylight savings, and even places like Yunnan that are daylight savings. That's Liakou, my favorite place. I'm going to get into Yunnan next. Sun doesn't rise there till 8:02. Some people don't like that, but look, it doesn't set till 7:16, and even in December, on the shortest days of the year, the sun doesn't set till about 6:30 in Yunnan versus like 5 o'clock in Shanghai, which is depressing. I much prefer the later sunsets out here. So this area of China all through here is like daylight savings year round. And Tibet and Xinjiang is like super daylight savings, which is why they have a local time 2 hours behind. But yeah, anyway, I love time zones. But the area we're going to be talking about is right in here in our history series. But let me go back to Facebook. Oh yeah. So I showed you in the last video the Yellow River at Haikou Falls, and then this is the Yangtze River roaring. I actually took this shot in August of 2011 in Tiger Leaping Gorge in Yunnan, where I was living. So let me go back to those maps. So yeah, there's China as a whole, and there's Yunnan, and I was living down here around Dali. And if you zoom out a bit, you can see that Yunnan is very close to Myanmar, very close to Tibet, very close to Laos and Thailand. It's kind of where the Himalaya mountains meet tropical Southeast Asia. And there's India over there. Northern Kachin state of Myanmar is all that separates southwest China from the eastern arm of India. But unfortunately, none of our ancient empires are in here. Not to get to the 700s CE, and you have the Nanzhao Kingdom based where I used to teach in Dali on the shores of Lake Urhai, and then you had the Dali Kingdom. But they were separate from the further east, much more talked about Tang and Song dynasties. But just like the Song, the Dali Kingdom got wiped out by the Mongols in the 1200s. That's coming up much, much later. This chapter won't go past the 200s BCE in the Warring States. But yeah, this area where I was, unfortunately, is not really a part of historical China. Unfortunately, it's way southwest of where all the history is being made over here. I just thought I'd make that point. But it's still an awesome culture. Here's some of the food. Absolutely delicious. This is my favorite place of the Nuzhang Valley, a little place called Pianma Pass. The road's going up towards the Myanmar border, and this is what the Nuzhang River looks like, the Salween. It's another just raging river. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And this is my favorite town of Liakou, and that's a little tour. Next video, we'll get into some real Chinese history. Woohoo! Coming up.